-64, and counting. The woman was very old. Richards thought he'd never seen anyone as old. She was wearing a cotton print house dress with a rip under one arm, an ancient, wrinkled dug swaying back and forth against the rip as she went about making the meal that Richards knew New Dollars had purchased. The nicotine-yellowed fingers diced and pared and peeled. Her feet, splayed into grotesque boat shapes by years of standing, were clad in pink terrycloth slippers. Her hair looked as if it might have been self-weaved by an iron held in a trembling hand. It was pushed back into a kind of pyramid by the twisted hairnet, which had gone askew at the back of her head. Her face was a delta of time, no longer brown or black, but greyish, stitched with a radiating galaxy of wrinkles, pouches, and sags. Her toothless mouth worked craftily at a cigarette held there, blowing puffs of blue smoke that seemed to hang above uh, her in bunched blue balls. She puffed back and forth, describing a triangle between the counter, skillet, and table. Her cotton stockings were rolled at the knee, and above them the flapping hem of her dress, varicose veins bunched in uh, clock springs. The apartment was haunted by the ghost of a long-departed cabbage. In the far bedroom, Cassie screamed, whooped, and was silent. Bradley had told Richards, with a kind of angry shame, that he should not mind her. She had cancer in both lungs and recently had spread upwards to her throat and down into her belly. She was 5. Stacy had gone back out somewhere. As he and Bradley spoke together, the maddening aroma of simmering ground beef, vegetables, and tomato sauce began to make its way into the room, driving the cabbage back into the corners and making Richards realize how hungry he was. I could turn you in, man. I could kill you and steal all the money, turn in the body, get 1,000 more bucks, be on Easy Street. I don't think you could do it, Richard said. I know I couldn't. Why you doing it anyway? Bradley asked irritably. Why you being their sucker? You that greedy? My little girl's name is Kathy, Richard said. Younger than Cassie. Pneumonia. She cries all the time too. Bradley said nothing. She could get better. Not like her in there. Pneumonia is no worse than a cold, but you have to get a medicine and a doctor. That costs money. I went for the money the only way I could. You're still a sucker, Bradley said with a flat and somehow uncanny emphasis. You sucking off half the world and they coming coming in your mouth every night at 6:30. Your little girl would be better off like Cassie in this world. I don't believe that. Then you're ballsier than me, man. I put a guy in a hospital once with a rapture. Some rich guy. Cops chased me for 3 days, but you're ballsier than me. He took a cigarette and lit it. Maybe I'll go the whole month. $1 billion. You'd have to buy a fucking freight train to haul it all off. Don't swear, praise God, the old woman said from across the room where she was slicing carrots. Bradley paid no attention. You and your wife and little girl will be on Easy Street then. You got 2 days already. No, Richard said. Game's rigged. You know, these 2 things I gave Stacy to mail when he and your ma went out for groceries. I have to mail 2 of these every day before midnight. He explained to Bradley about the forfeit clause and his suspicion that they were tracing him to Boston by postmark. Easy to beat that. How? Never mind. Later. How'd you get out of Boston? You're awful hot. Made 'em mad blowing up their oinkers at the YMCA. They had freebie on that tonight, on the ones that you took with the bag over your head. That was pretty sharp. Ma, he finished irritably. When's that stuff going to be ready? We're falling away to shadows right here before you. She coming on, Ma said. She popped a cover over the rich, slowly bubbling mass and walked slowly to the bedroom to sit by the girl. I dunno, Richard said. I'll try to get a car, I guess. I got a fake I've got fake papers, but I don't dare use them. I'll do something. Wear dark glasses, get out of the city. I've been thinking about going to Vermont and then crossing over to Canada. Bradley grunted and got up to put the plates on the table. By now they got every highway going out of Beantown blocked. A man wearing dark glasses calls attention to himself. We'll turn you into monkey meat before you get 6 miles. Then I don't know, Richard said. If I stay here, they'll get you for an accessory. Bradley began spreading dishes. Suppose we get a car. You got squeezing green. I got my name that isn't hot. There's there's an Irish man on Milk Street that'll send me a wint for 300. Sell me a wint for 300. I'll get one of my buddies to drive up to Manchester. I'll be cool as a fool in Manchester because you're bottled up in Boston. You eatin', Ma? Yes, praise God. She waddled out of the bedroom. Your sister's sleeping a little. Good. He ladled up 3 dishes of hamburger gumbo, then paused. Where's Stacy? Said he was going to the drug, Ma said complacently, shoving gumbo into her toothless maw at blinding speed. He said he going to get medicine. If he gets busted, I'll break his ass, Bradley said, sitting heavily. He won't, Richard said. He's got money. Yeah, maybe we don't need any charity money, grey meat. Richards laughed at it and salted his meal. I'd probably be slabbed now if it wasn't for him, he said. I guess he earned the money. Bradley leaned forward, concentrating on his plate. None of them said anything more until the meal was done. Richards and Bradley had 2 helpings. The old woman had 3. As they were lighting cigarettes, a key scratched in the lock, and all of them stiffened until Stacy came in, looking guilty, frightened, and excited. He was carrying a brown bag in one hand and gave Ma a bottle of medicine. That's prime dope, he said. That old man, Curry, asked me where I got $2 and 75 cents to buy prime dope, and I told him to go to shit and boot and eat it. Don't swear, the devil'll poke you, Ma said. Where's dinner? Or here's dinner. The boy's eyes widened. Jesus, there's meat in it. Nah, we just shattered it to make it thicker, Bradley said. The boy looked sharply and saw his brother was joking, giggled and fell to. Will that druggist go to the cops? Richards asked quietly. Curry? Nah, not if there might be some more squeezing green in this family. He knows Cassie got to have heavy dope. What about the Manchester thing? Yeah, well, Vermont's no good. Not kind enough for our people. Tough cops. I get some good fella like Rich Golan to drive that went to Manchester and park it in an automatic garage. Then I drive you up in another car. He crushed out his cigarette in the trunk. They're only using jiffy sniffers on the back road. We'll go right up 495. Pretty dangerous for you, Richard said. Oh, I wasn't going to do it for free. When Cassie goes, she's going to go out wrecked. Praise God, Ma said. Still pretty dangerous for you. Any pig grunts at Bradley, he'll make him shit and eat their boot, sit in their boot and eat it, Stacy said, wiping his mouth. When he looked at Bradley, his eyes glittered with a flat shine of hero worship. You're dribbling on your shirt, Skinner, Bradley said. He knuckled Stacy's head. You beaten your meat yet, Skinner? You ain't big enough for that, are you? If they catch us, you'll you'll go in for the long bomb, Richard said. Who's going to take care of the boy? He'll take care of himself if something happens, Bradley said. Himself and Ma here. He's not hooked on nothing, are you, Stace? Stacy shook his head empathetically. And he knows that if I find any pricks in his arms, I'll beat his brains out. Ain't that right, Stacy? Stacy nodded. Besides, we can use the money. This is hurting family. So don't say no more about it. I guess I know where I'm going. Richards finished his cigarette in silence while Bradley went in to give Cassie some medicine. Minus 63 and counting. When he woke, it was still dark, and the inner tide of his body put the time at about 4:30. The girl, Cassie, had been screaming, and Bradley got up. The three of them were sleeping on a small, drafty back room. Stacy and Richards on the floor. Ma slept with the girl. Over the steady wheeze of Stacy's deep sleep respiration, Richards heard Bradley come out of the room. There was a clink of a spoon in the sink. The girl's screams became isolated moans which trailed off into silence. Richards could sense Bradley standing somewhere in the kitchen, immobile, waiting for the silence to come. He returned, sat down, farted, and then the bed springs shifted creakily as he lay down. Bradley? What? Stacy said she was only 5. Is that so? Yes. The urban dialectic was gone from his voice, making him sound unreal and dreamlike. What's a 5-year-old kid doing with lung cancer? I don't know they got it. Leukemia, maybe, not lung cancer. There was a bitter, whispered chuckle from the bed. You're from Harding, right? What's the air pollution count in Harding? I don't know, Richard said. They don't give 'em with the weather anymore. They haven't for, gee, I don't know, a long time. Not since 2020 in Boston, Bradley whispered back. They're scared to. You ain't got a nose filter, do you? Don't be stupid, Richard said irritably. The goddamn things cost $200, even in the cut rate stores. I didn't see $200 all last year, did you? No, Bradley said softly. He paused. Stacy's got one. I made it. Ma and Rich Golan and some other people got 'em too. You're shitting me, Richard said. No, man. He stopped. Richards was suddenly sure that Bradley was weighing what he had said already against a great many more things that he might say, wondering how much was too much. When the words came out again, they came with difficulty. We've been reading. That freebie shit is for empty heads. Richards grunted in agreement. The gang, some of the guys are just cruisers, All they're interested in is honky stomping on Saturday night, but some of us have been going down the library since we've been 12 or so. They let you in without a card in Boston? No, you can't get a card unless there's someone with a guaranteed income of $5,000 a year in your family. We got some plump ass kid uh, and kiffed his card. We take it in turns. We got a gang suit we wear whenever we go. Bradley paused. You laugh at me, I'll cut you, man. I'm not laughing. At first, we only read sex books. Then when Cassie first started getting sick, I got into this pollution stuff. We got all the books of impurity counts and smog levels and nose filters in the reverse section. We got a key made from wax blank, man. Did you know everyone in Tokyo has to wear a nose filter by 2012? No. Or had to wear a nose filter by 2012? No. Rich and Dink Moran built a pollution counter. Dink drew the picture uh, out of the book, and they did it from coffee cans and stuff they boosted off cars. It's hid out in an alley. Back in 1978, they had an air pollution scale that went from 1 to 20. You understand? Yes. When it got up to 12, the factories and all the pollution producing shit um, had to shut down till the weather changed. It was federal law until 1987, when the revised Congress rolled it back. The shadow in the bed rose up on its elbow. Bet you know a lot of people with asthma, that right? Sure, Richard said cautiously. I've a touch myself. You get that from the air. Christ, everyone knows you stay in the house when it's hot and cloudy and the air doesn't move. Temperature inversion, Bradley said grimly. And lots of people get asthma, sure. The air gets like cough syrup in August and September. But lung cancer? You ain't talking about asthma, Bradley said. You talking about emphysema. Emphysema? Richards turned the word over in his head. He couldn't assign a meaning to it, although the word was faintly familiar. All the tissues in your lungs swell up, and you heave, and you're still out of breath. You know a lot of people who get like that. Richards thought. He did. He knew a lot of people who had died like that. They don't talk about that one, Bradley said, as if he read Richard's thoughts. Now the pollution count in Boston is 20 on a good day. That's like smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day, just breathing. And on a bad day, it gets as high as 42. Old dudes drop dead all over town. Asthma goes on the death certificate, but it's the air, the air, the air, and they're pouring it out just as fast as they can. Big smokestacks going 24 hours a day. The big boys like it that way. Those $200 nose filters aren't worth shit. They're just 2 pieces of screen, a little piece of methylated cotton between them. That's all. The only good ones are from General Atomics. The only ones who can afford them are the big boys. They gave us the freebie to keep us off the streets. We can breathe ourselves to death without making any trouble. How do you like that? The cheapest GA nose filter on the market goes for $6,000 US. We made one for Stacy for $10 from that book. We used an atomic nugget the size of uh, the moon of your fingernail. Got it out of a hearing aid that we bought at a hawk shop for $7. How do you like that? Richard said nothing. He was speechless. When Cassie boots off, you think they put cancer on her death certificate? Shit, they'll put asthma. Everyone might get scared. Someone might keep a library card and find out lung cancer is up 700,000% since 2015. Is that true, or are you making it up? I read it in a book. Man, they're killing us. The freebie's killing us. It's like a magician getting you out to watch the cakes fall out of his helper's blouse while he pulls rabbits out of his pants and puts them in his hat. He paused and then said dreamily, sometimes I think that I could blow the whole thing out of the water. With 10 minutes talk time on the freebie, tell him, show him. Everyone could have a nose filter if the network wanted to have them. And I'm not helping them, Richard said. That ain't your fault. You got to run. Killian's face, and the face of Arthur M. Burns, rose up in front of Richard's. He wanted to smash them, stomp them, walk on them. Better still, rip out their nose filters and turn them to the street. People's mad, Bradley said. They've been mad at the honkies for 30 years. All they need's a reason. A reason. One reason. Richards drifted off to sleep with the repetition in his ears. Minus 62, and counting. Richard stayed in all the while. Bradley was out, seeing about the car and arranging with another member of the gang to drive it to Manchester. Bradley and Stacy came in at 6, and Bradley thumbed on the freebie. All set, man. We go out tonight. How? Bradley smiled humorously. You don't want to see yourself coast to coast? Richards discovered he did, and when the Running Man lead came on, he watched fascinated. Bobby Thompson stared deadpan at the camera in the middle of a brilliant post in a sea of darkness. Watch, he said. This is one of the wolves that walks among you. A huge blow-up of Richard's face appeared on the screen. It was held up a moment and then dissolved into a second photo of Richards, this time in the John Griffin Springer disguise. Dissolved back to Thompson, looking grave. I speak particularly to the people of Boston tonight. Yesterday afternoon, 5 policemen went into a blazing, agonizing death in the basement of a Boston YMCA at the hands of this wolf, who had set a clever, merciless trap. Who is he tonight? Where is he tonight? Look, look at him. Thompson faded into the first 2 clips, which Richard had filmed that morning. Stacy had dropped them in the mailbox on Commonwealth Avenue across the city, and he had let Ma hold the camera in the back bedroom after he had draped the window and all the furniture. All of you watching this, Richard's image said slowly, not the technicos, not the people in the penthouses. I don't mean you shits. You people in the developments and the ghettos and the cheapest high-rises. You people in the cycle gangs. You people without jobs. You kids getting busted for dope that you don't have and crimes you didn't commit because the network wants you to make sure you aren't meeting together and talking together. I want to tell you about a monstrous conspiracy to drive you, or to deprive you of the very breath in you. The audio suddenly became a mixture of squeaks and pops and gargles. A moment later it died altogether. Richard's mouth was moving, but no sound was coming out. Seems we lost our audio. Bobby Thompson's voice came out smoothly. But we don't have to listen to any more of this murderer's radical ravings to understand what we're dealing with, do we? No, the audience screamed. What will you do when you see him on your street? Turn him in. And what are you going to do when we find him? Kill him. Richards pounded his fist against the tired arm of the only easy chair in the apartment's kitchen living room. Those bastards, he said helplessly. Did you think they were going to let you go on air with it? Bradley said mockingly. Oh no, man. I'm surprised they let you get away with as much as you did. I didn't think, Richard said sickly. No, guess you didn't. The first clip faded into the second in this one. Richard had asked people watching the storm, watching to storm the libraries, demand cards, find out the truth. He read off a list of books dealing with air pollution and water pollution that Bradley had given him. Richard's image opened its mouth. Fuck every one of you, his image said. His lips seemed to be moving around different words, but how many of the 200 million people noticing were going to notice that? Fuck all pigs. Fuck the Games Commission. I'm gonna kill every pig I see. I'm gonna... There was more. Enough so that Richards wanted to plug his ears and run out of the room. He couldn't tell if it was the voice of a maniac, of a harangue made up of spliced bits of audio tape. The clip faded into a split screen of Thompson's face and the still photo of Richards. Behold the man, Thompson said, the man who would kill. The man who would mobilize an army of malcontents like himself to run riot through the streets, raping and burning and overturning. The man would lie, cheat, kill. He has done all these things. Benjamin Richards, the voice cried out with a cold, commanding Old Testament anger. Are you watching? If so, you have been paid your dirty blood money. $100 for each hour. Now number 54, that you have remained free, and an extra $500, 100 for each of these 5 men. The faces of young, cleared-featured policemen began appearing on the screen. The still had apparently been taken at a police academy graduation exercise. They looked fresh, full of sap and hope, heartbreakingly vulnerable. Softly, a single trumpet began to play. Taps. And these, Thompson's voice was low and hoarse with emotion, were their families. Wives hopefully smiling, children that had been coaxed into a smile for the camera. A lot of children. Richards was cold and sick and nauseated. He lowered his head and pressed the back of his hand over his mouth. Bradley's hand, warm and muscular, pressed his neck. Hey, no, no, man. That's put on. That's all fake. You're probably just a bunch of harmless bulls who... Shut up, Richard said. Oh, just shut up, please, shut up. $500, Thompson was saying, and infinite hate and contempt filled his voice. Richard's face was on screen, cold, hard, devoid of all emotion, save an expression of bloodlust that seemed to be chiefly in his eyes. 5 police, 5 wives, 19 children. It comes to just about $17.25 for each of the dead, the bereaved, the heartbroken. Oh yes, you work cheap, Ben Richards. Even Judas got 30 pieces of silver, but you don't even demand that. Somewhere, even now, a mother is telling her little boy that daddy won't be ever coming home because a desperate, greedy man with a gun. Kill her, a woman was sobbing. Vile, dirty murderer, God will strike you dead. Strike him dead, the audience chanted. Behold the man. He has been paid his blood money, but the man who lives by violence shall die by it, and let every man's hand be raised against Benjamin Richards. Hate and fear in every voice, rising in a steady, throbbing roar. No, they wouldn't turn him in. They would rip him to shreds on sight. Bradley turned off the screen and faced him. That's what you're dealing with, man. How about him? Maybe I'll kill him, Richard said in a thoughtful voice. Maybe. Before I'm done that, I'll get up to the 19th floor of that place and just hunt up the maggots who wrote that. Maybe I'll just kill them all. Don't talk no more, Stacy burst out wildly. Don't talk no more about it. In the other room, Cassie slept her drugged, dying sleep. -61, and counting. Bradley had not dared drill any holes in the floor of the trunk, so Richards curled up in a miserable ball, with his mouth and nose pressed towards a tiny notch of light, which was the trunk's keyhole. Bradley had also pulled some of the inner trunk insulation around the lid, and that let in a small draft. The car lifted with a jerk, and he knocked his head on the upper deck. Bradley told him the ride would be at least an hour and a half, with 2 stops for roadblocks, perhaps more. Before he closed the trunk, he gave Richards a large revolver. Every 10th or 12th car, they're giving a heavy look over, he said. They opened the trunk to poke around. Those are good odds, 11 to 1. If it don't come up, plug you some pork. The car lurched and heaved over the potholed, cracked, crazed streets of the inner city. Once a kid jeered, and there was a thump of a thrown piece of paving, and then the sounds of increased traffic all around them, and more frequent stops for lights. Richards lay passively, holding the pistol in his right hand, thinking of how difficult Bradley had looked, or how different Bradley had looked in the gang suit. It was a sober Dillon Street, double-breasted, as grey as blank walls. It was rounded off with a maroon tie and a small gold NAACP pin. Bradley had made the leap from scruffy gang member, pregnant ladies stay away, some of us eat fetuses, to a sober black business fellow who would look exactly who would know exactly who to Tom. That's what it says. You look good, Richard said admiringly. In fact, that's damn incredible. Praise God, Ma said. I thought you'd enjoy the transformation, my good man, Bradley said with quiet dignity. I'm the district manager for Raygon Chemicals, you know. We do a thriving business in this area. Fine city, Boston, immensely conventional. Stacy burst into giggles. You best shut up, Bradley said, else I make you shit in your boot and eat it. You, Tom, so good, Bradley, Stacy giggled, uh, not intimidated in the least. You really fucking funky. Now the car swung right into a smoother surface and descended in a spiraling arc. They were on an entrance ramp going into 495 on the feeder expressway. Copper wires of tension were stuffed into his legs. 1 in 11. That's not bad odds. The car picked up speed and height, kicked into drive, and then slowly, abruptly, and kicked out. A voice, terrifyingly close, yelled with monotonous regularity, "Pull over, have your license and registration ready. Pull over, have your already, starting already. You so hot, man. Hot enough to check the trunk of one car in 8, or 6, or maybe every one." The car came to a full stop. Richard's eyes moved like trapped rabbits in their sockets. He gripped the revolver. Minus 60, and counting. Step out of your vehicle, sir, the bored, authoritative voice was saying. License and registration, please. The door opened and closed. The engine thrummed softly, holding the car an inch off the paving. District manager for Raygon Chemicals. Bradley was going into a song and dance. Dear God, what if he didn't have the papers to back it up? What if there was no Raygon Chemicals? The back door opened and someone began rummaging in the back seat. It sounded as if the cop, or if it was a government guard that did this, Richard wondered half coherently, was about to crawl right through the trunk with him. The door slammed shut. Feet walked around to the back of the car. Richards licked his lips, held the gun tighter. Visions of dead policemen gibbered before him, angelic faces on twisted, porcine bodies. He wondered if the cop would hose him with machine gun bullets when he opened the trunk and saw Richards lying there in a curled up, or like a curled up salamander. He wondered if Bradley would take off and try to run. He was going to piss himself. He hadn't done that since he was a kid, or his brother would tickle him until his brother let go. Yes, all the muscles down there were loosening. He would put a bullet right at the juncture of the cop's nose and forehead, splattered brains and sprinkled skull fragments, startled streamers into the sky. Make just a few more orphans. Yes, good. Jesus loves me, this I know, for my bladder tells me so. Jesus Christ, what's he doing? Ripping the seat apart? Sheila, I love you so much. How far will 6 grand take you? Maybe a year? If they don't kill you for it. Then on the street again, up and down, across the corner, swinging the hips, flirting the empty pocketbook. Hey, mister, I go down. This is Clean Kitty Kid. Teach you how. A hand whacked the top of the trunk, casually in passing. Richard bit back a scream, dust in his nostrils, throat tickling. High school biology, sitting in the back now, scratching his initials and Sheila's onto the ancient desktop. The sneeze is a function of an involuntary muscle. I'm just going to sneeze my goddamn head off. But it's point blank. I still can't put a bullet through his squash. And what's in the trunk, mister? Bradley's voice, jocular, a little bored. A spare cylinder that don't work half right. I got the key on my ring. Wait, I'll get it. If I wanted it, I'd ask. Another door closed and opened. Drive on. Hang tight, fella. Hope you get him. Drive on, mister. Move your ass. Cylinders cranked up. The car lifted and accelerated. It slowed once and must have been waved on. Richard stolted a little as his car rose and sailed and kicked into drive. His breath came in tired little moans. He didn't have to sneeze anymore. And we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. And we'll be doing at least 2 new books because we're at the end of Lockwood and Hunger Games. I was thinking House of Night. We're sort of at the limit of House of Night, but I'll do it for maybe another chapter or two. And what will we do for Romance Wednesday? This probably won't surprise you, but I have all the Twilight books. You laugh, but I bet most of the haters that were in, I don't know, what was that? Was that 2012? Everyone was hating on Twilight, remember, on the internet? That was all it was. Still a better love story than Twilight. I bet half of those people haven't read the books or have only, or not even watched the films, but those who have watched the films, you will not be surprised to discover it is the inferior version, of course. But yes, get that uploaded, and thanks for listening.